I think first and foremost, the absolute brightest and most positive thing about this club right now is our fans. The support that we have gotten all year long has been absolutely fantastic, and I think puts the team automatically in a good place to succeed. If you have a loud fan base that's there and a supportive fan base that's there for you every game, it provides you a great atmosphere to have an advantage at home. There's other things. I think we obviously have 3 fantastic designated players on this team. We have some very exciting young talent to develop into what should be great MLS stars. And we have now, I think we've identified a core group of players to stay here next year and build off of because, in my opinion, in this league, it takes continuity.
Hey, can we get an update on George John and whether New York City FC is still counting on him for next season?
George is, we've been in the same place with George back in December that we are probably now. Unfortunately, it's still very much 50-50 as to whether or not he'll be able to come back and contribute at this level. We're also very, very hopeful that it's still there. We feel it's still a possibility at this moment, but we need to give it a couple more weeks. He's really started to push a lot harder in the last couple of weeks and been running. And I think if we can get past those few weeks, we'll have a much better indication of whether or not he might be able to contribute for 2016.
Yeah, Jason, about tonight's game. Chris Wingard, was this the most active you've seen them offensively, not just this year, but perhaps in the time you've coached him? And part 2, how would you assess his performance this season?
I would say no to the first question because Chris, in the games where he really takes things by the bit a little bit and gets forward, he can be quite effective. I feel that he's just a team guy, and so I feel like in some of the games he really feels like he needs to sit back to make us more defensively solid. But in a match where you give away a goal in the first 5 minutes, as we did tonight, you know that you're going to have to get your outside backs going forward a lot more, and they've got to be more effective in the attack. Unfortunate, I think, that he doesn't have a goal tonight because I believe he had 3 headers inside this 6-yard box and probably should have scored one of those, but he got himself in some really effective positions, and that's pleasing to see. His performance over the season, I think, has been similar to the rest of the team, to all of the team. There's been goods and there's been bads, but he's, I think, an important veteran part of a team that we could look to build around going forward.
Coach, so the next game you have scheduled is the friendly against Puerto Rico. Can you talk about what the training regimen is going to be leading up to that, and then what squad you expect to take down to that trip?
Yeah, we'll have 2 weeks off of training here starting tomorrow, and then we'll start back and be able to train for 2 weeks leading up to Thanksgiving. Because of the collective bargaining agreement, we're not allowed to train over the Thanksgiving break, and actually aren't allowed to train past that until 6 days before the match. Some of these awkward CBA agreements make things a little more difficult than you'd like. So effectively our schedule looks like 2 weeks off and then 2 weeks training together and then 2 weeks off where they'll be training on their own with a very regimented program to keep themselves fit. And then we will train the week leading up to the Puerto Rico game in Puerto Rico.
Okay, stand. How would you assess your performance this season as coach?
Difficult. I am definitely the type of person that looks first and foremost at myself. I know that I really feel that there were some areas that I could have and should have taken control of, perhaps from day one of preseason, and done a better job. I feel like we didn't do a good enough job of preparing the team in our preseason. I think that that's part and parcel of having not only a new team, so you're training guys that have no idea kind of how you're training or what you want of them in trainings, but also having a brand new staff. It was the first time that I've ever worked with our strength and conditioning coach, and the first time that I worked with some of the other people in that side of things. So from my point of view, there's some improvements and some things that I wish I had done differently, of course. With the team failing to reach our own, I think, expectations, which perhaps were a little too burdensome. I look at myself first.
Final two questions.
Jason, Kwame Watson-Servo, he had some tough moments early in the year, and then kind of didn't use him much. You've used him a bit more now towards the end of the season. Do you see a role for him in this team going forward next year?
I think it's difficult to say right now. We have decisions that have to be made this week, and I think it would be unwise of me to comment on anybody's future before we make those decisions this week.
Did that have something to do with why you played him today, to get another look?
No. He played because Shea Facey came out injured at halftime. He removed himself from the game with a quadriceps injury.
Okay, Michael.
After everything this year, would you consider this first season as a whole more of a success or a failure?
More of a success, absolutely. In my opinion, again, there's the club, I think, has to view what we were able to do in this last year as a very successful story. Now the team, I think we also can look at this and say to finish the season with 37 points is quite good. To finish the season with 10 wins is better than most of the teams in since the 2000s. And I stated last week that puts us fourth best expansion team since the 2000s. And I don't want to repeat it. So for me, that's a success.